I'm here with Professor Mak at the ICGN Hakama event in Dubai. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you.
So you're a specialist in accounting, finance, corporate governance. What would you say are some of the gaps or areas which you think we need to challenge the paradigm of thought in this area?
Yeah, so I've been involved in kind of the development of corporate governance in Singapore, right? Starting more than 20 years ago. So when we kind of started, we basically look at what the UK was doing. It was very much based on the shareholder kind of model. But today, with the focus on sustainability, I do wonder whether a lot of the corporate governance, the traditional corporate structures that we have, where we have the standard committees and the audit, nomination, remuneration committees, still are relevant. I'm not saying those committees are not important, but there are issues which are also important, like sustainability, right, that we've been talking about. Maybe there should be more encouragement for companies to consider having that, or even a stakeholder engagement committee, because I think stakeholder engagement is very important. So that's one. And the other thing is, while I've seen kind of improvements in terms of adoption of structures, in terms of more independent directors being appointed, I've been questioning a lot in terms of how truly independent the independent directors are, and also the relevance of the skill sets of the directors. So I would like to see kind of a fresh look at what kind of corporate governance structure would be fit for purpose for today's world.
And what about the accounting profession as a whole? Do we need to see changes there? I mean, have people lost faith in accounting? For example, you had Lehman Brothers going bankrupt on one floor, and you had one of the rating agencies giving them an investment grade rating on the other floor. Yeah. We've actually had our own debacles, not to mention any names here in Dubai, of course. What is happening with this accounting profession? Do people trust it? Do we need to change it? Or what's your take on that?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? Because there is, I would say, a loss of trust in the big four accounting firms, the major accounting firms, because, and it's all over, right? Look at one of the big four having a big problem in Australia, other big fours having problems in UK, in US. So it's all over the world. I think it comes back to, what is the core purpose of kind of some of these accounting firms? I have very good friends who were senior partners in accounting firms. And when they started, they were very focused on audit. Of course, over time, where the money is consulting. So a lot of them just move so much into consulting that the consulting overwhelmed the audit part of the business, and the consulting part is a little bit different. The audit side is highly regulated, the consulting side is not. So you have the non-regulated side, which is now accounting for most of the revenue and driving the culture. So I think that resulted in kind of a loss of trust that some of these firms have become too focused on pleasing the client and not enough on protecting the interests of investors and stakeholders. So I think, we need to get back to kind of, how do we bring back ethics, if you like, to the core of the accounting profession. I'm afraid that we've lost our way, much of the accounting profession has lost its way. Yeah.
Right, and so a lot of boards bring you in to do training for them, and what kind of training do you provide, and what do you feel is the type of training that's most needed for these boards?
Yeah, so I do a variety of training. I mean, one is, I was doing mandatory training for first-time directors in Malaysia, and Malaysia has been very strict. They require all directors, even if you have experience serving on a US board, you have to attend. So there's that level of training. And then I do a number of programs for, on nomination committee, people serving on nomination, remuneration committee. But one program that I particularly think is important is, because quite often when independent directors join the board, they often say, my role on the board is compliance, right? Is compliance. But my role on the board is compliance, but they forget that their role is actually to also help to ensure the long-term success of the company. So what then happens is I develop a program that focuses on the value creation role of the board, targeting independent directors. Okay, so I find that program is important. I do talk a bit about culture and dynamics, which I think is important. So I think there are a number of elements that are important, and I do a program on the role of the board in kind of overseeing ESG, environmental, social, and governance issues. So there are a whole range of issues. But to me, maybe training that remind independent directors their role is not like a policeman, just to make sure that rules are complied with, but they are there to help to ensure the company is successful in the long term. Yeah.
Some people have said that the best way forward is to make mentioning EBITDA as a metric illegal, and shoot any CEO who voices his performance in terms of EBITDA. What do you think about it?
Yeah, EBITDA does have a limitation. We always say, right, if you are sarcastic, you say EBITDA is kind of profit excluding all the bad things, right? So it's kind of like, so it's a limited measure. You know, I think that if you tie things to, let me put it this way. I think there can be reasons why you would exclude certain things when you are evaluating the performance of, say, the CEO. So today, when we are talking about sustainability, if the company needs to invest for the long term, okay, and it may not pay off until 20 years, you have a CEO who has a 5-year contract, right? But you need to invest for something that returns or need to in 20 years' time. If you use the conventional measure where all this investment get amortized and then get deducted from the profits, or worse, some of it have to be written off immediately and you have a direct hit on the profit, what you're going to have is a CEO say, I'm not going to invest. So I think there could be reasons why you will make adjustments to how you measure the performance of the CEO. But quite often, EBITDA, unfortunately, is just used to kind of, I don't want all the bad things to be included. That's why. Okay. But I don't want to just immediately dismiss to say, you should just take the last line on the profit and loss account and use that as the measure for the CEO. Because I think in today's world, maybe you do need to make some adjustments to protect the CEO from some of those things because you want to encourage them to think long term.
So that's Professor Mak giving his insight into ESG, corporate governance, and finance at ICGN Hakama, Dubai. Thank you so much.
Thank you.